Hello guys, welcome back to another State of Physical Media video, and we're going to talk more about how games used to be based on movies and obviously vice versa and stuff like that nowadays, and why we're not getting much anymore. Yeah, so I was somebody that grew up and I loved obviously going to the cinema to see my newest films. Of course, we get the Blu-ray releases and 4K releases of those films. And when I was growing up during the PS1, PS2 era, there seemed to just be a video game for every single movie IP, basically. Whether or not you've got Star Wars here, I've got Star Wars Starfighter and Clone Wars, also Racer Revenge there, alongside, of course, Battlefront 1 and 2, which I don't have 2 here currently. But as I say, Star Wars IP was just one of the many examples of games that were there. If there was a film that was launched in the cinema, chances are there was a video game made for it as part of that promotion. And as we have gone into the year 2025, of course, you know, PS5 now is the newest format, and we still do get some certain things. We get Star Wars Outlaws, which is, I guess, like a new Star Wars all-round free roaming game. We also get then Jedi Survivor, which is quite interesting in terms of another story and is canon to the Star Wars universe. And then also Avatar here, Frontiers of Pandora, of course, based on the game. But they're not as, you know, prevalent as they used to be back in the 90s. And I guess, why is that? Well, I think a large part of it is probably down to sales, of course. You know, some of the games that I remember growing up with, it's things like Toy Story, you know, that old school Toy Story game. One of the most nostalgic games I've ever played in my life. You know, even things that I go back as far as what have I got here? You know, Simpsons Road Rage and Simpsons Hit and Run, which is on the shelf actually. You know, these games are so nostalgic to like our childhood and stuff, and arguably the best games that were out there. And it's a shame nowadays that kids don't get that experience, I guess, that we had growing up. Of course, Fortnite is kind of the latest thing, and movie studios, movie companies, I guess, releases, they tend to add on add-ons to like Roblox or Minecraft or, you know, all these games that are really popular nowadays, rather than actually creating a full-on game, you know, of the movie IP. Now, all the games that I have here actually for Star Wars, for example, are all like add-ons. I got Bounty Hunter there as well. They're all like, you know, like a pod racing game. You know, they're all kind of games within the films, I suppose. But there was a time back in the day where, you know, you would have a Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith PS2 game that came out. And I actually did some digging on this and watched some videos on it, and I decided to create a video myself talking about it and bring this information to you guys. And it's actually mad to think, but we used to live in a time where the Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith PS2, well, video game in general, was released before Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith in the cinemas. So just think about this a second now, right? It is literally like Avengers Endgame going in cinemas, but there's a video game made of the movie that comes out before, and the people who play the video game, of course, you know, the movie video game, will see Tony Stark snap his fingers and ultimately pass away before watching the movie. How mad is that? Like, that is a time that we used to live in. So there was a period on the game where you could see Anakin, of course, switch to the dark side, of course. There's a level on there, I think, where you actually do go to the Jedi Temple and kill younglings. It's a full-on level. But it's a true thing. It's actually a fact. It is, you know, one of those things that is just mind-blowing, that a video game of a film that's not yet released used to come out first. Just let that sink for a second. So that's where we used to be with video games. As I say, every time a film would come out, you would then get the video game to go with that film. And it was a great time to be alive. It allowed us as young kids to just go and see the film in the cinema and then experience the game again and just play the film through many, many times. I remember fondly in PS1 days of, like, for instance, Tarzan. Tarzan was such a massive thing for me. I loved Tarzan, and it was so good. And the game was also really, really interesting and good as well. I think it had a bit of a Mario kind of thing on it. You know, you kind of go through the levels, get the little coins and all of that kind of thing. Nowadays, however, though, we've gone in a different way, totally. Games are being made into movies rather than movies being made into games. Stay with me. Sonic, great example, of course. The whole trilogy of Sonic. This is Sonic 3, of course. Fantastic. One of the highest grossing movie, I think, if not the highest grossing movie of this year. Minecraft, again, another one that is just a game that has been made into a movie. And of course, Super Mario Brothers, which took a lot of money and kind of started this trend of games being made into movies. And yeah, it's really interesting that that's the case. We also do get, as I did touch on at the beginning of the video, some games that do get released nowadays that are actually like canon to the story, one being Jedi Survivor. So studios now are using games as an actual, you know, way to build out their universe universes. In the words of Jedi Survivor, this is the second game. There's also one before this, but this is actually canon to Star Wars. Actual Lucasfilm stuff. This is actually canon to the entire universe of Star Wars. So pretty interesting that this is another medium that you can offer more stories. Marvel haven't really done this. They've never done this in terms of the MCU. They've obviously done TV shows and movies, but they've never done games. But they have actually released games that are more standalone. So things like Guardians of the Galaxy that I have here, which is pretty cool. They are based on not actual like Chris Pratt, but they're like different people, I suppose. Drax just doesn't look like Drax, as you can see there, but they are, I guess, it's a game of the thing. So it's like a loose base on the actual story, but its own unique story at the same time. But pretty interesting game as well. And also the other one, I've got Spider-Man 2 as well, but also Spider-Man, the first one, alongside, of course, Spider-Man Miles Morales here. So Spider-Man, being one of the most successful PS5 games and one of the launch titles, I believe this one was. It's one of the most successful PS5 games out there. And as I say, building the story, but it's just not, it's not Donald Glover, is it? It's not who we saw in the MCU, and it's not Tom Holland as Peter Parker. It's a different actor, different face scan or whatever. So, these games do exist, but they are quite interesting, and they're based on those worlds. And of course, things like Hogwarts Legacy. Of course, this is set, I think, a couple of hundred years before the whole events of Harry Potter, but it gives the user the experience to go to Hogwarts and be a student and all of that. So they do nowadays base games on, of course, current movies that are in the cinema and stuff like that, which, it's not totally gone away, but what has totally gone away is, for instance, Star Wars Episode 9 coming in the cinema and us having a game based on that entirely. We are getting things like Lego and whatnot for Star Wars point of view, but we're not getting, like I said, with the whole Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. And as I say, what a crazy time that would be. Imagine, like, before Episode 7 comes out in the cinemas, we had the game drop and people could actually play the movie in a game before actually seeing the movie in cinemas. So I just wanted to raise this as another topic of something I'm really interested in terms of, I'm an avid collector of PS2 games. I'm starting to become, getting some of my old PS2 games from my childhood, ones that I used to love. Of course, Race of Revenge, absolutely fantastic, and pretty cheap prices from CEX at £4 for that one there. Starfighter I've got there, Clone Wars. I used to love all of these back in the days. What ultimately made me fall in love with Star Wars, and you could argue what ultimately made me fall in love with movies, because this is like the bonus scenes, the additional extras that you get, staying in that world after watching the films that you love. You get to then become Obi-Wan Kenobi or become the Stormtrooper or actually fly the pod race that Anakin had in the movie. It just, for me, made me more engrossed in the media that I love and the films that I loved. And I hope kids do get the chance to experience it one day. Now, I am going to be playing for the first time, I've actually just installed it, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. I've just had this come in. This is a game that I picked up pretty cheap on Vinted, but obviously it's based on Avatar. So I'm going to give this a go and obviously see if I can get into the world of Avatar and actually become, I guess, this thing. And we're going to give it a go, but I'm looking forward to playing in the world of Pandora, and hopefully it lives up to it. As you can say, most of my games tend to be movie-related games, to be honest, I buy nowadays, unless it's FIFA, which yeah. But yeah, just wanted to make this little video talking about games and movies and how they all linked back in the day when I was growing up, and of course how they are now. I think it's still good that we're getting them. I'm super glad that we do get games based on movies, but it would be nice, of course, for all these other games to get remade maybe in a way. And like, we used to have, like, as I say, we used to have so many different things that people don't have nowadays, and maybe they're missing out. I'm not too sure. But if you are somebody that's interested in that, look up a movie that you love, and there's probably a game based on it, because that's how it was growing up for me. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon, and of course, please do subscribe if you are new here and you like what you see. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon, and of course, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.